And here it is, another episode of the Israel Update, live from Modain and Franklin, North Carolina. Hanok Young, Mike Clayton. And you notice, Hanok, there's something different behind me.
That's right.
You,
It looks like you're now with the dark side of the force. I don't know what that is.
I'm trying to relate to you, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah. But you also notice that this is kind of like there's a scripture in Matthew that says a man should consider the cost before he goes out and starts building something, and ran out of money before I had all the foam things here. So if you could,
It looks great though.
if
It
you could
really
just,
looks great.
my PayPal address, I think you know it. So if you could just send a little donation here so I can get the rest of the tiles.
Sure. No, that sounds great. That sounds great.
No, they're on the way. I just I didn't know that it was going to take this much tile to put up there. So, all right, hey, what is happening in, as Scripture calls it, the land of the living?
Okay. Well, before we go there, we
Uh-oh.
do have, of course, a birthday acknowledgement. Da 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 da. Say it's your birthday. Okay. And this time it would be Jeremiah Connor.
Ah,
Yeah, there's a Jeremiah Connor. He's one of the sons or the brothers, depending on how you want to look at that whole family unit. Of course, he's married to someone by the name of Kristen. Okay, so I don't want to get into Psych 100 here, but when your mother's name is Christy Connor and you marry someone whose name is Kristen Connor, but anyway, neither here nor there. So happy birthday, Jeremiah.
yeah.
I believe the family is probably still celebrating Mary's birthday, but that may be it for the Connors for at least a week. I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know.
wow.
Israel, lots
Okay.
going on here in Israel.
Go for
First
it.
of all, it is hot. What do I mean hot? I mean, I guided at Masada Ein Gedi and the Dead Sea yesterday. And what's great is when I look at the temperatures in Celsius, I don't relate to it fully. So it's like 33 is hot, 36 is really hot, 38 is really, really hot. But then I convert it over to Fahrenheit and I'm saying, like, man, it's 104 degrees. I'm melting. Yeah. So it's and what's funny is I kept telling everyone in America, yeah, it's humid in Mississippi,
Uh-huh.
it's humid in Louisiana, but in Israel, it's dry heat. Well, I'm not so dry. Got to tell you, just got back from Jerusalem, not so dry. Okay,
Okay.
too many details.
And just to let you know, Hanok, and
Yes.
I'll give you this in Fahrenheit. It was 62 here in Franklin this morning.
I'm struggling with the proper response because I'm really envious. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm
because
thrilled to be back in
yeah.
Israel.
Yeah, you don't want to
Thrilled.
break the commandments this early for you that, a little later in the day, you don't want to break the the commandment of coveting. So, yeah, okay.
No. I certainly don't. In about another, wow, 5 weeks or so, it will be Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah.
And my original plan of years ago of trying to make the 10 days of tshuva between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur kind of a mini Mardi Gras, figuring that on Yom Kippur we would be asking for forgiveness. And I figure if it's worked so well for the Catholics, we could do it too. The concept hasn't gone over. So let's get back to business.
Okay. Hey, listen, I want to
Yes.
be the one that puts the ashes on your forehead in the shape of a menorah or something. Okay.
Yeah, I got to tell you, in this world, anything is possible.
Not now.
Now, the dance steps that always occur here in Israel before elections are going full force.
Ah,
This one leaves this party, this one joins that party. There's a new coalition. The what existed until 2 months ago no longer exists. Try not to get distracted by this. Let's wait before the election, see whose parties are where, and then we could talk about it a bit more
Yeah.
intelligently. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
everyone
Yeah.
is pointing fingers.
Yeah.
I can say that in all of the polls, there is no majority yet again.
So basically, you're going through an election process that's going to bring you back to not pass go,
Chaos,
do not
chaos.
collect 200 shekels.
Right. Do
Yeah,
not, we'll run out of a national budget at some time
yeah.
again. Facing the Iranian threat, this is really not the time. But
Mhm.
this was something that was orchestrated by Bibi Netanyahu, and he still thinks he's going to rule the roost. Again, if
Yeah.
there was anyone else as chairman of the Likud would be running the next government. There's no doubt about it.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Uh,
Anyone else?
let's say that, Hashem forbid. Let's say that something happened of, this continued terrorist stuff that's going on. If that escalated, Iran escalated, would that actually cause the nation of Israel to get behind a person more? Do you see that?
It's a really interesting question. It's what happened in May of 1967.
Oh, okay.
Levi Eshkol, our prime minister, called for the creation of a national unity government. He was already prime minister, but the opposition, which was led by one of my mentors, Menachem Begin, joined the government at that time. That
Yeah.
was the idea of pulling all together. It's possible, but as we say, "Ein somchim al hanes," don't depend upon miracles.
Yeah.
It's there's unity and then there's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other big issues. Of course, we had another major terrorist attack, not far from the Western Wall.
Yeah, that was right
Yesterday.
outside the Dung Gate. Is that right?
Well, a little further up between Sharashvot, the Dung Gate, and Mount Zion. That
Okay.
kind of
Okay.
that turnoff area,
Okay. Yeah.
which is absolutely isolated and desolate. Of course, the important element of that, thank God, there were injuries, but people are recovering, including the pregnant woman who was shot in the stomach. But the thing to point out about this is how this was praised in the Arab media, how this is praised in the so-called Palestinian Authority, of which the big news from yesterday was you've got Mahmoud Abbas, the head of the PA, in Germany, and we're coming up on the 50th anniversary of the Munich massacre.
Oh,
50 years ago, coming up
wow.
shortly, the 1972 Olympics, Israeli athletes were kidnapped and murdered, and disfigured and maimed, and horrible things happened.
Yeah.
And the Germans botched anyway, make a long story short. So in Munich, they're doing a big commemorative. So Abbas was asked, because the terrorists that did it were from Fatah,
Hmm.
Fatah.
Okay.
That's Abbas's group. He was asked if he apologizes for that. Now, here's a chance. He's in Germany. It's a chance for him to gain world support because he's there asking Germany to recognize a quote unquote Palestinian state.
Yeah.
And instead, he acts as he actually believes. And he said, "You want to talk about the past? Israel has committed 50 Holocausts." Now, the use of the term is really important, particularly in Germany. And the Chancellor of
Yeah.
Germany grimaced at the time because Germany, in particular, is very, very specific that the term Holocaust should only be used on what happened to the Jewish people
Yeah.
under the Nazis.
Yeah.
The Germans are very strict about that. So but the reason is they can't stop it. They can't control it. Everyone who kills Jews is a heavenly martyr. This is,
Mhm.
I was guiding people recently. I think I may have mentioned this last week. And they asked me, "So when will there be peace?" And I said, I can actually And one said, don't tell me, in the Messianic era. So I said, okay, when they lose the desire to kill Jews,
Mhm.
is a real opportunity for peace.
Well,
And
I guess that Golda Meir, to quote her,
yeah,
when they love their children more than they hate the Jewish children, that will be an opportunity. I think the basic question is very naive, because the basic question does not understand the scriptural context of this and the fight between the two brothers of Jacob and Esau,
yeah,
of Ishmael.
yeah.
This is if you don't understand what went on in Bereshit, Genesis, then you really don't understand what's going on today.
It's an excellent point, Mike. That's an excellent point. It's just it's almost mind-boggling. Now, one
So
of the
yeah, let me state this,
sure.
for someone to say, so don't give me the answer, the Messianic era. My answer to that would be, well, that's the only answer that really is, in my
Well,
opinion.
but again, these are Americans,
Yeah,
so they're thinking that things can be negotiated and there'll be
yeah,
a contract and there'll be an agreement. And it's interesting because a little later on, one of them brought up, about a peace agreement, and then I went through the whole thing. I won't go through every step of it now, but how Ukraine had 1,500 nuclear warheads, and to give them up, their security and national integrity, their
mhm.
sovereignty, was guaranteed by Europe, America, and Russia. So look at what's going on there now. Anyway,
This is the basic philosophy that goes through, educated people. All right, that education can solve everything. So if we could just come up with a course on "Don't Kill Jews 101," followed by, how to love your Jewish neighbor 101, then everything would be fine. But when a person does not understand the spiritual realm, there's no way for them to understand the natural realm, in my opinion.
but my mention of Ukraine and Russia triggered something in me. I should mention this.
Okay, good.
We're now at 31,000 Olim immigrants. Not all of them are Jewish. Here we go yet again. Um, that came from Ukraine and Russia.
Uh,
Now, Israel was gearing up for a very large Ukrainian immigration, and the majority of these people actually have come from Russia
huh.
because the totalitarian Iron Curtain USSR is about to descend on them, and people are trying to get out. Now, a couple of things. Last week, I mentioned, having read the statistic, about 80% of American Jews, et cetera, or 85%. I have not been able to find additional data to substantiate that. I wrote to the author of the article and I got back some kind of like, well, based on my experience and anecdotal evidence, that's not statistics. So
Mm.
we're going to go back to our 70% of American Jews have never been to Israel a single time. Now, on my flight, which was only a week ago Sunday night, there were enormous amount of Haredi, or in America, it's actually, that's ultra Orthodox. In America, it's called yeshivish. The guys with the
Yeah,
black hats, black.
yeah.
Okay, I have to be careful how I said that because I was giving a talk at Joe Good's a number of weeks ago, and I mentioned about the Haredi population, the ultra Orthodox. The ones that dress like penguins. So a woman writes in complaining to Victor Schultz that I'm anti-Semitic. And I have to tell you, I've been called a lot of things in my day. Anti-Semitic. This was a new one for me, but that's okay.
Hey, we're in the same crowd now. Again, we have something else in common. I
What is he?
was it was a number of years ago. I can't remember what it was, but somebody called me anti-Semitic. Really?
I really, and again, we have to come back to my father's understanding
Yeah.
of
Okay.
horses, asses, and horses. Anyway, so um, the number of American Jews that, okay, so I'm talking about, so all these ultra Orthodox Jews are coming. The last week, as I've begun guiding in the Western Wall tunnels again, there is a huge amount. Now they're large families, and for many, it's interesting to me. This is the first time in Israel. Now they came after Tisha B'Av, after the 9th of Av. That's a real popular time in the Orthodox Jewish world to go on vacation.
Okay.
Same thing here in Israel. People, the 3 days, excuse me, the 3 weeks from the 17th of Tammuz to the
Mhm.
9th of Av, semi-mourning period. So people are on vacation. And you see, and yesterday, yeah, it was yesterday at Ein Gedi, the amount of families is out the wazoo because
Mm.
Israeli schools don't open up until September 1st.
Oh, okay.
And then they're in school for about 3 weeks and then they're off
Huh.
for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, before Sukkot, Sukkot, right after Sukkot. Anyway, it's crazy. They get back to school when the Connect tour starts on October 31st, just about. Anyway, American Jews. These people are clueless. These are Orthodox Jews. And I can see from what I'm teaching within the Western Wall tunnels. Now, I admittedly, what I teach is a much more in your face,
Yeah.
the temple, the Western Wall's importance is only because of its spot closest to the Holy of Holies.
Yeah.
I mean, one guy came over to me and said, I feel a little let down. So I said, I usually don't get that comment after my tour. She said, no, no, not by you, but by the yeshivas I went to.
Huh.
No one ever mentioned this. And it's so obvious the way you present it.
Wow.
So that was, that was an aha moment.
Huh.
Um, there are approximately the numbers from when I came on Aliyah almost 13 years ago, is everyone quotes the number of about 3,400 Jews from America every year. Now we know that the majority don't stay. The best estimate that I've heard is we're talking about 2,500 a year from
Wow.
America out of a population of almost 5 million stay. It's less than insignificant. It's
Yeah.
less than insignificant. And so this is within the most affiliated part of the Jewish community as well. I got to, the lines to go through El Al security were extremely long. And after Tisha B'Av, they showed up an hour and a half late. So this was strange. So at JFK, all the regular staff, the New Yorkers that, process your bags and everything, they have to wait, of course, for the Israeli security, El Al security. So I got into conversations with people on the line, and people actually seemed stunned that I was Israeli, because
Mm.
as you're getting ready, you pull out your passports, and I have two passports, and because I guess it's me, I always have my Israeli passport on top. I'm always kind of in your face, and you can't imagine how many people have asked me, any regrets of having gone on Aliyah? And I said, yeah. And so which ones? I said the fact that I wasn't able to put it together to get there sooner.
Hmm. I could have answered that one. I knew what your answer was. Yeah.
I mean,
Here's the
it's
crazy
crazy.
thing about this whole scenario is that you're the one that's looked at as the village idiot.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you mean you're a Jew and you made Aliyah? Or are you crazy or what? Yeah,
It's not
that's
just that. It's as a religiously observant Jew to another religiously observant Jew.
yeah,
In other words, they know when you study the Talmud and the that Chazal, the sages of Israel, say that living in Israel is equivalent to all the other mitzvot, all the
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
commandments.
Yeah.
Now, it
Rob
doesn't
Cook.
mean that now in Israel we don't have to keep them, but it's a sense of that importance. And I got to tell you, there's barely a day that goes by that I don't read about Jews being attacked in the United States. It used to be
Oh yeah.
just Europe. Used
Yeah.
to be just Europe.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's happening all over. Let me throw something at you here. This year I really spent more time thinking about the 15th of Av. I have to tell you, it's a date that, I just had not really through the years thought much about.
Yeah.
But this year, for some reason, this date became very significant for me. And the 15th of Av, and please correct my history here if you would, but we know that Jeroboam, closed off the border to the southern kingdom.
Right.
Basically, he put the golden calf in Beit El and Tel Dan, which I
Right.
think that anyone who had ever, looked toward a Torah scroll should have said, "This is not good."
No, don't do
Uh,
it.
so he changes the dates, he changes the calendar, he changes all of these things, and then on the 15th of Av, was it Hoshea ben Elah? I believe it was that opened the border to from the northern kingdom to the southern kingdom so that they could go to Jerusalem. The northern kingdom could now go to Jerusalem for the
Once
festivals.
again, once again.
Yeah. And nobody showed up. Nobody showed up. And here's
How soon we forget. And they didn't even have to take a plane ride.
yeah. Yeah, they could have walked on a donkey, whatever, but or camel, or just go down to the local camel lot and find your transportation there. But here's what struck me so hard this year on this date is that it is said that Hoshea ben Elah was judged, even though he opened the border. He did not encourage and prod the people to go. And this is what brought about the eventual assimilation of the Northern Kingdom, the overthrow and the assimilation of the Northern Kingdom. They were given a window of time. And Hanok, I wonder if for the Jews you're talking about, for the Hebrew roots, Messianic, whatever it is, kind of deal, is there a window of time to turn back to Jerusalem, to Israel?
Yes,
Even
without a
if you
doubt.
can't make Aliyah. Okay, you're talking to people that could make Aliyah. I'm not. But even
Without
though
a doubt. Without a
it,
doubt.
it's like the word of Jeremiah in Jeremiah 51, it says, when you see the destruction of Babylon, and I'm not going to get into where I believe Babylon is, but is it a system? Yeah, I think that's one level. It's a system. Do we see today the destruction of that system? Yes. In my humble opinion, yes. And what's the next verse? The next verse says, "Let Jerusalem come to your mind."
It's interesting. Without a doubt, there is a time limit. Where that time limit is, have we gone past it? Are we at the border of it? I don't know. I always, one of the cliches that my mom used to use all the time was where there's life, there's hope.
Wow.
And this is someone who had an extraordinarily difficult life,
Yeah.
but never lost the smile on her face.
Wow.
My sense is we've got to act as we know that we have to. And the rest is totally out of our control.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen so many people turn their backs on Israel. And okay, so I wasn't going to tell you this anecdote, but I'm standing in the back of the Western Wall Plaza, and I hear behind me someone say, "Excuse me," and I turn around, and it's an American ultra Orthodox young couple with the baby carriage, and said, "Can I ask you a question? Do you speak English?" And I'm wearing my hat backwards. I mean, seriously, like, yo, now you can't leave. I mean, seriously. So he's asking me how does he get to the Churva synagogue? Now, first of all, if you're standing at the Western Wall Plaza and you have no idea how to get to the Churva synagogue, that clearly means that you've never been in Israel before.
Yeah.
Now, here's a guy, young 20 something. So I'm thinking, wow. Anyway, so I explained he can go up either staircase on either side and, just follow the foot traffic into the heart of the Jewish quarter. So he said, "Well, what about my carriage?" So I said, "I'm sorry, there are no ramps. In either case, it's staircases." I said, "They're building an elevator, but it'll take years." So his wife asks me, "Is it safe?" So I said, "Is it, you mean the Jewish quarter?" She said, "Yeah." "Is it safe?" I said, "The Jewish quarter?" I mean, I'm incredulous. I said, "Yeah, probably the most secure place in all of Israel. But may I ask you, where are you guys from?" So they say, Muncie, New York. So I say, "Yeah, I know where Muncie is. Um, you live in Muncie and you are asking me if you're safe in the Jewish quarter?" And there was really no reason for me to be that obnoxious other than because that's how I roll. I mean, but seriously,
Yeah.
Muncie,
Yeah.
this is north of New York City. This is where, cars drive by the locals. I know you don't have this kind of rowdy vandalism in Franklin, but they drive by and they throw beer cans and bottles at the Jews, but is the Jewish quarter safe?
This is just basic ignorance, Hanok.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's, you know, that's a, what do you do? What do you do? It's, you answer questions when they're asked, as you did. And maybe the person, them taking that few minutes to go to the Jewish quarter will make a change in their life. You just never know.
I love your optimism, Mike.
But you talk about, and I know we're going a little long today, but
Uh-oh.
you know, you talk about turning your back. One of the things that that I do every day is 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock. I stop, recite the Shema. Um, I was at a Messianic Sukkot years ago. I won't say where, um, but I was at a Sukkot and I talked about this. And I think it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I stopped and I said, "Okay, guys, we're going to face toward Jerusalem and we're going to recite the Shema." And the person who was the leader, and by the way, just to clarify, this was not Monty Judah's Sukkot. Okay, I want to get Monty off the hook on this one in case somebody tries to think it was Monty. It wasn't. Um, the leader of the Sukkot literally turned his back. I mean, physically turned his back on Jerusalem. I had no words. What do you do with that?
You realize that you go back to the question, is you is or is you ain't my
Yeah,
constituency?
yeah,
It's amazing. Of all the one-liners, we've got a tremendous amount of wonderful scriptural one-liners. I keep falling into from "Oh Brother Where Art Thou," because it's true.
yeah, it
Are
is.
you in or you out?
Yeah,
When
yeah,
when people make a reference, like the people that I met at JFK Airport, and it's like, "Oh no, we didn't go on Aliyah, but we live in the five towns in Long Island." Or what they'll do is they'll say, like, "The five towns," like, pause, "that's on in Long Island." And I'll say, "Yeah, I know where it is.
Mhm.
Now you
Yeah,
can't, now you can't leave. I mean,
yeah.
really, seriously,
Well, things we'll
it is
have to
what it is.
fix later on, but, yeah.
Yeah,
All
sure
right.
enough.
Well,
Anyway, so have a great week. I hope it's a good one. I'm still trying to get my sleep cycles in gear. Still have to be up at 4:30 tomorrow. Time to play with. I had 47 people up on Masada the other day.
wow.
Yeah, it's a good thing my liability insurance was just renewed. You never
True.
know what's going to happen.
Yeah, especially in that heat. All right. Take care of yourself.
Well, worse when you've got 12 people that only speak Italian. Ciao, bella. Yeah.
All right.
Have a great one, Mike.
Thank you.
Take care, man. Bye bye.